Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video I'm going to take a look at somewhat of a classic case. This one's been on the market a little while and it's had a few revisions, but today we're going to be taking a look at the Bequiet Pure Base 501 Windowed Air. This has been kindly donated to us for review by Dave Aitken, thank you very much. He actually picked this up for a fantastic price. This actually came in at just under £50, $49.99 for what is an extremely well built case, and has got lots of flexibility, built like a tank, and also very, very quiet with some added padded insulation in the back of the actual side panels to make things nice and quiet. So if you're going to be using this inside of a office environment, this is going to be absolutely great. Or if you just want a quiet PC to use for gaming or whatever, productivity, etc, etc, this has got to be one that should be on your list. So in today's video, I'm going to go through, do a bit of a teardown, go through some of the features, some of the pros, and also some of the cons, and that way you can decide if this is going to be suitable for your next PC build. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the Bequiet Pure Base 501 Glass Airflow. I think that's the right name. There'll be links in the video description anyway, so you can check out for yourselves. Now this comes in two colors. There is a black version. As you can see here, there's also a white version if that's your jam. Also, there are slight variations of this as well, such as the DX version, and also there are ones with RGB fans and all that kind of stuff. So depending on what you want, there should be something for you, although obviously prices will fluctuate. Again, check out the links in the video description to find out the latest pricing in your regions. We'll have links for Amazon, eBay, etc, etc, so you should find somewhere that has got it at a pretty good price, at least you would hope so. Now this case comes as is for $49.99, plus comes included with two fans. So it does come with two of the Pure Wings 3 140mm fans. These are great fans, very high static air pressure, and realistically, because of both the quietness and also the power, you probably won't need a great deal of extra fans for most builds. Obviously, if you're putting in some high TDP parts in here and it's going to get cooking, then you can always add them. It's very easy to do so, and they do sell those fans separately should you wish to, at very reasonable prices. And in fact, if you take into account this case is £50 to buy with the two fans, the fans on their own are normally somewhere around the sort of £10 mark. So you're getting almost 30 quid's worth of case, which is astounding for what they've actually managed to pack into it. So let's take a closer look. So on the front panel, we've got this nice airflow mesh design, very much a kind of dual design. It fits in with pretty much any environment. It's going to be absolutely fine. And also to take it all apart, it's very modular. You can grab the front panel, take it off, so there's a little grab handle on the bottom. So let's quickly pull that off. And the panel comes off very easily. So for maintenance purposes, for cleaning, etc., very easy to do. So we like that a lot. And to make this even quieter and also cleaner, there is also a nylon mesh behind here as well. Now, to be honest with you, the front panel is probably enough on its own. So if you do want a little bit of airflow, then you can always just remove this. It is magnetic with a hinge on the side, and you've got that nice nylon mesh. So if you wanted to, you could probably leave that out just to give you a little bit more airflow. Although realistically, these meshes flow very, very well. So that isn't really necessary. And also if you're in a very dusty environment, that is going to pay dividends to have you prevent from doing that kind of weekly or monthly maintenance of scooping out all the dust bunnies from inside your PC case. So now we've got the front removed, we can see this front section. So you can put in here either 3 120mm fans or 2 140mm fans. Now, depending on your setup, there is actually a drive cage at the bottom, which is pretty much blocking most of the bottom fan anyway. So I think for the majority of people, a simple setup with two 140s starting about here, going up to here, that's going to be the optimal solution for airflow. Now you can, if you want to, put a 360mm radiator in this front section. You can also put a 280, 240, etc. Obviously, depending on what you want to do, if you want to just keep with air cooling, that's absolutely fine. Unfortunately, the front section is the only place that you can put a 360mm radiator, which is a little bit of a shame and one of the few downsides of this particular chassis. When it comes to the top section, you can only put a maximum of a 280 in there. Now the 280 is probably not a good idea, and in fact it will impede with some motherboards. So actually from the website themselves, from the manufacturer, they are suggesting in the top a maximum of a 240, but a 280 will go in, but it may be a very tight fit, so it's advised against that unless you've done your measurements beforehand. So that's pretty much it for the front section. There's also your front I/O panel. So on the front I/O, you've got a USB Type-C, which is USB 3.2 Gen 2. You've also got two USB 3.0 Type A connections. There's a power button in the middle. Also, then you've got the combo headset mic jack, and then you've got a reset button. And I think there's another button on the top, which is possibly for changing RGB on other models. So if you've got a different case with the RGB fans, you can use that button. I'm pretty sure what that's for. It doesn't actually say, it's not even labeled up, but I think that's pretty much what it's going to be for. So that is pretty much it for the front panel. Very traditional layout, very easy to work with. Yeah, ticks all the right boxes. Now taking a look a little bit closer inside, so I've removed the tempered glass side panel. You've probably seen that in some other shots we've shot already. A nice solid tempered glass panel which covers the whole top and bottom, and also encapsulates this basement section at the bottom. The internal layout is actually really, really nice. So all the usual features there. You've got removable PCI Express brackets which are replaceable. You've also got nice layout for all of your pass-through cables, nice big holes to pass those through. This is really good. Also, there's a big cutout in this bottom section as well. So if you are putting that 360mm radiator up front, you would have to remove the drive cage, which is suitable for 3.5-inch drives. But don't worry, there's plenty more storage in the back for other drives anyway, so that shouldn't be too much of a concern. Realistically, I think if you're someone who's having a lot of hard drives, there's a chance you're somewhat of a serious professional, in which case you're more likely to go with air cooling. That's just my opinion. Let me know in the comment section what you think. When it comes to gamers, I think we're a little bit more likely to be using NVMe storage or maybe even cloud-based storage. So yeah, removing that drive cage, installing your 360mm rad and putting loads of lights and whistles on here, going to be absolutely fine. So either way, the choice is yours and it works equally as well. With the motherboard back panel, very solid metal construction. You've got all the usual things, all the pass-throughs, lots of big space on the back there for CPU coolers. You can fit CPU coolers up to 178mm in height, so that's pretty huge. Also, when it comes to graphics cards, up to 368mm in length. Also, the back panel for the PCI Express is also rotatable, so you can install a vertical mount setup in here, and they do include some bracketry in the accessories box to enable that to happen. Yeah, nice solid panel there. Only thing I would have liked to have seen possibly is another cutout towards the front to pass through the power cables for your graphics card, but you can easily route them through these big holes at the back, so it isn't a problem. That would have been a nice to have. Also got a Bequiet logo in here, also above and below. That is a storage area for 2.5-inch drives, should you wish to install them. Also, another thing which is quite nice is going back onto the airflow. You look at this cable cover and you think, well, that's going to block a lot of airflow. Actually, around the side of it, it's all meshed out, so the airflow which is coming in from the front can pass through there and get to your CPU cooler and your motherboard very easily. So that's all really nice. Also, again, in the back, we've got another one of those Bequiet Pure Wings 3 PWM 140mm fans. Great fans, move a ton of air, keeping it very, very cool and very, very quiet at the same time. So those are nice to see included. When it comes to the top section, so again, the top of this, there isn't a huge amount of clearance between the top and where the top of your motherboard is going to be. It's literally about 35-40mm. So in terms of installing radiators in the top, because obviously radiators are starting to get a little bit thicker and fans seem to be as well, so you're going to be taking about 55mm from the top. So it is going to cover up some of your VRM and also potentially some of your RAM sticks. So if you're someone who likes to switch out RAM all the time, or you've got high profile RAM with RGB on it, you may find it clashing with radiators, etc. So again, I would say realistically, when it comes to water cooling in the front if you're going to do it. Otherwise, this case is really optimized towards air cooling. Going back to the top section, also you've got pass-throughs at the top there for fans or potentially a radiator if you're going to do that, and also your EPS connection for your motherboard. So yeah, it's a really nice layout. Slightly cramped, I would say, in terms of the top section, but in terms of the rest and the way it's laid out, the quality of the metal, etc., yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. The actual pillars are pre-installed as well on the back panels, so if you're just going to put an ATX motherboard in here, which really you're probably going to be doing, the pillars are set up, and also you've got the locating pillar in the very middle, so you know that your motherboard is in exactly the right position. So yeah, internally, I think they've done a fantastic job. No problems whatsoever there. Moving around to the back, so again, we've got our 140mm Pure Wings 3 fan, which is installed. You can, if you want to, you can sort that out and put in a 120, but realistically, why would you want to? It's included, it's part of the price, so you're probably better off leaving it as is. IO section, you've got your PCI Express blanking plates, Again, there is an option to kind of rotate that as well for vertical GPU mounts. Also, you've got some thumb screws there to kind of get access and close this off a little bit. Not the most elaborate design, but it gets the job done. And also on the bottom, you've got a section for your power supply, so ATX power supplies up to 180 mils in length. Moving around to the back panel, so yeah, pretty typical, just a standard solid piece of metal. But what does separate it from the crowd in a very nice way is the fact that there is actually a nice thick sound deadening pad on the back panel, which actually surprisingly does reduce the noise levels quite considerably. If you've ever used one of these cases and then kind of put the same build into another case without sound deadening pads, it does make a difference. So it is nice. It does also insulate the back as well, so it is going to trap a little bit more heat in there, but I think the trade-off between reduced noise and the heat is absolutely fine. And personally myself, I would much rather have a quieter PC in my workspace. So taking a closer look in the back here, so it's a very typical layout, but they've actually managed to squeeze in quite a lot here as well. So again, we've got our pass-throughs here for our cables, EPS or fan cables, etc. They've also got some cable management built in with these nice Bequiet wraps. There's also some spares included as well to help with cable management. In some respects, it's a little bit tricky and fiddly in the back here. The 180mm for the power supply is a little bit on the small side, but if you do want to get a bit of extra room, you can undo the thumb screws on the drive tray and you can pull that out. It is actually a 2 position, so you can move it back about 1 inch if you want to give a little bit more room on the front. And the Caddy is great, so you've got rubberized grommets on the side to remove vibrations from mechanical spinning drives. So that is excellent. You can put 2 drives in there. Also, that is home for the accessories box, which has got all of your screws, cables, fasteners, and also the additional mounting and hardware for vertical mounting your GPU. It doesn't include a vertical mount cable, but the bracketry is there ready for you, so that is pretty nice. On the back, so you've got storage for up to 5 2.5-inch drives, one there, one there, one there, one there, and also there's another location on the top of the drive caddy as well, so if you want to put one in there you can do. These are also removable, so on the thumb screw, so you just undo the thumb screw, and it's just a very simple bracket, but it's made of a nice quality metal, so that's great. And also that's going to give you access to the back of your actual CPU cooler, so if you do need to do anything to your CPU cooler, you've got relatively easy access without a thumb screw to remove it. Also, if you're putting drives in this section here, then you can remove this Bequiet logo from the middle, plastic things, just you can run your cables through there if you needed to. Or alternatively, if you want to remove that in its entirety, you can undo this screw. Now it is a little bit fiddly to remove this, especially if your cable management isn't totally on spec, and yeah, sometimes it gets kind of hitched up on that bit, so do bear that in mind. But as I was saying, so you can put 2 drives on here, 2.5-inch drives, and also you've got the section there with the flow through to allow a little bit of air to get there. Again, if you're going to be putting drives on here which might get potentially warm, a little bit warm, then you will get a little bit of airflow going through there. So yeah, that's great. Also, if you wanted to, you could just remove that in its entirety and leave it blank. That choice is up to you. In the bottom there, with the actual cage removed, loads of room in there. But with the cage in there, it does obviously make it a little bit more compact and a little bit less space for you to work with. When it comes to connectivity, so you've got your PWM, which is coming from that front fan. You can reroute that to wherever you want to. Same PWM for the rear one as well. When it comes to front panel connectivity, USB Type-C, so that's a USB 3.2x2, so 10 gigabit per second. You've also got USB Type-A, so 2 ports on there. That's going to be 5 gigabit per second. Then you've got a molded front panel connector, so that's nice, so you don't have to faff around with those. And also you've got your HD audio connector. A little bit of a shame there that the cables aren't blacked out on there like they are on basically everything else, but realistically it's going to be tucked down the bottom, so pretty much no one's going to see it anyway. The only thing as well which kind of does date this design slightly is the fact there's no support for back to front type motherboards or rear connect motherboards, so all of this is solid. Again, I think realistically, because of the size of this case, a little bit smaller, actually having the depth there to do the rear connect, it just doesn't have it. So they've given you more room for air cooling with that 178mm maximum size for your air cooler, but it just makes it slightly more cramped in the back for rear connect boards. If you're using a normal board, which you're going to be, loads of room here. I've got about 1 inch of cable management room. So yeah, very easy to Stuff your cables in here if you need to. Obviously, if you're putting drives in there as well, those are going to protrude a little bit, so do bear that in mind. But otherwise, the bottom section is going to be relatively open if you don't put 3.5-inch drives in. Obviously, if you do put this back in, it is going to limit your space quite significantly. So let's take a look at the bottom section. So the bottom, as you'd expect from a Bequiet case, they've pretty much thought of everything. So you've got a nice grill mesh there, which comes out from the front as well. So if you've got your PC on your table or your desk next to you, it's easy to grab the front of it and pull that through. And you can see there's a ton of mesh there as well to let airflow into your power supply section. And of course, it's all going to be fully filtered as well, which is very nice. And the feet are raised up around about 1 inch off the floor. And actually slightly unusual feet on there, with a little bit of a kind of indent or cutout on there. So a little bit of attention to detail there. We do like that. And also, talking of attention to detail, if we take a look at the top section, so obviously you've got your front I/O, as we've said, at the front there, and you've also got a nice removable filter on the top, which yeah, is held in place very nicely. Nice stiff bracket around the outside edge. And also it shows you how much airflow potential there is. So essentially they've left it all pretty much blanked out. So if you are putting 120mm fans in, there's going to be virtually no restrictions on them whatsoever. Of course, if you're going to put a radiator in there up to 240, then that is going to aid the escaping airflow because there's nothing to actually restrict it. Again, the same caveats apply due to where the motherboard is and also how high up the motherboard is going to be inside the chassis. When it comes to water cooling, obviously do make your choices based on what RAM and motherboard you're using. If it's got a massive VRM on there, potentially could clash. If you're going for a 240, should be fine. 280s are the ones I would be worried about. Again, they do not recommend 280s in here, but they will physically fit. So last of all, I'm going to contradict myself, as I sometimes do. And towards the beginning of this video, I said about this being like extremely high quality, very well built, built like a tank, etc. But some of the cons to me are the fact that the fit and finish isn't always as you'd expect. Now, simple things like putting this drive caddy back in was a little bit of a faff, getting it lined up right. And also, I have found with the cage which goes into the bottom of the case, there are 2 sections it can go into. And if I try to get it into one or the other, it kind of, is that going to go this time? No. That screw's gone in. That one's sort of gone in, but you can feel, or you may even see on camera, that that screw is definitely pissed. It seems to be going down. So the kind of the thread hasn't been cut particularly well. And if we take it out as if we were going to put some bigger fans in the front, so we'll give it a little bit of room. If you try and slide it out and put it into the rear section, yeah, it kind of, no, that didn't lock in. That felt like it went in better. So you can actually kind of hear that click into place. But still, I'm trying to do up these screws and they just don't want to latch. And it's always, no, that's not done it. That's basically pulled it out again. So it's a little bit of a shame that things like this, which are kind of like things which have been around for years, it's a shame they haven't done this a little bit better. I'm not sure whether this is bent or something, but yeah, this is a little bit on the fiddly side. And I can see some people getting frustrated by it. Realistically, I think, again, a lot of people these days using basically NVMe storage, probably not going to use any drives at all. But if you are definitely going to be using this cage and also you want to move it back a bit and you are going to be moving these, then just be a bit mindful that it isn't quite as slick. Let's try it again. Yeah, you can hear it kind of lock into place, but it just, oh, I think, no. Yeah, did I get it? Yes, I did get the screw that time. So that one's lined up. So in theory, that one should be also now. But the screws just don't want to go in all the way. And they're thumb screws, so they kind of, it's almost like it needs to cut a new thread. So yeah, it's a very nice case. It's very, very well built in terms of its actual structural rigidity and the quality of the components used. I should put the filter back in first. So the filter, little lugs on the side, you line those up and then push that into place. There we go, that locks in nicely. And for the front panel again, that just snaps in very easily indeed. So yeah, it's a nice case and it's a fantastic price. If you can pick it up when it's on its kind of offer price at around about £50 here in the UK, it's a lot of case for £50. Just do be mindful of the restrictions for the radiators. I know there's a lot of you out there that like to put 360mm rads in the top. Nope, not going to happen. A 280 is going to be tough. 240 is doable, but again, the same caveats exist for RAM clearance and VRM clearance, all that kind of stuff, which were probably less of a consideration when the 501 or the 500, which this is based on, actually came out all those years ago. So yeah, it's a nice case, executed pretty well. The fit and finish could be a little bit better, although it could be just down to this particular sample. The rest could be fine. If you've got one of these already and you've done a build in it and you've experienced it, do please let us know in that comment section what your thoughts are. Do you agree with what I'm saying? Could those kind of things be done a little bit better in terms of how the screws have actually been machined into the case? I'll be interested to hear your thoughts. But I think for now, that is going to pretty much wrap this one up. Massive shout out again to Dave for letting me have a lend of this, just so we can take a look at it. I think it's actually one of those cases that you should definitely consider if you're looking for a more air-cooled build. I think this makes a lot of sense. And again, in office environments, yeah, this is a no-brainer. It really is. Especially when it's at its discounted prices. When it's at its normal retail prices, which appear to be around about the 70 to 80 pounds mark, I do feel there are a lot more options on the market, which would be better to be taking a little bit closer look at. But otherwise, at the reduced price, I think this is a cracking case. So there you go. There is the Bequiet Pure Base 501 Window Air. I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To. And hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.